before Dr. Rohit comes in, we will just take you through the quick overview, what is the Contoura vision all about. We all know that Contoura vision is basically a topo-guided treatment for the primary eyes. And if you know about the history of the topo-guided treatment, this is basically a topo scan is being done. Based on that information, the treatment algorithm will be designed. We do have two topographers. We have two topographers. One is oculizer and another one is topolizer vario. Both are different measuring principles. Both the topographer based topo guided is possible. And we all know that the topo guided tool is very well known tool for the corneal repair works or corneal enhancements. Basically, this is for the small pupil size or irregular corneas, and even today it has been developed to use the keratoconus. So this is what all about the topo guided treatments the world has been using outside the US. So when we approached US for the topo guided treatment, the FDA asked us to start with the primary eyes, because the topo guided is known for the corneal enhancement, so they want to see the results on the primary eyes. That is how this is being started, the journey. And then when we did the study, FDA study on the virgin eyes, the primary treatment of topo guided treatment, it has come out very well. So what is the difference in the Contoura vision? We all know that in the wavefront, optimized treatment is a gold standard, and it has been very well resulting in terms of the all kind of a patient. The topo guided treatment is basically the Placido ring based topo system, which is at vario, which scans which does the mapping of the cornea. That information is being transferred to the laser, and from there the treatment algorithm has been designed. It is a customized treatment basically, because we are customizing based on the unique information from that cornea. The treatment range, it is a FDA approved range only we are recommending as of now. So what are the system basically we required? As we mentioned, topolizer vario is the main device, which is to acquire the data from the patient. Then this also can be done in the IQ laser, that is a 400 Hz laser, also in the EX500 platform. We need to transfer this data. In the case of EX500, it has been wavenet networked so that it can be easily transferred to the laser. In case of the IQ, it can be transferred help of the pen drive. So if you exactly ask what is this all about, the wavefront optimized, it is basically we provide the refraction and the keratometry. That is a very basic information required for the treatment algorithm. In addition to that, in the Contoura vision, we provide the topo informations, right? And also one more question comes, is that it's a more time consuming? Yes. As a customized treatment profile, we need to acquire the data. The data has to be validated properly. Yes, this consumes some time pre-operative workup, because what we input, that is very critical for the treatment algorithm. So it is required some time. It is not that much. As we know that this is a primary eyes, irregularities are very minimal. Of course, we can look at that, what kind of irregularities are contributing in their refraction by way and means of looking at in the topolizer vario, or even in the treatment planning steps, which I can show you in the following slide. This is how, if I typically I put it in the procedure steps. So first, that vario is being used for scanning the patient information. Then it is being, the overview picture has to be validated with all relevant informations. Then we will transfer to the planning station. We call it the planning station, which is integrating the laser and diagnostic all together. Then we can do the planning without getting inside the laser room. We can do it in our OPD itself. Then we will finalize the treatment. This is what our the overview image, what we get it from the topolizer vario. The first image we looked at. This is very important. You can see the P green and the R green. This all the information is very, very important. It's a preferred image for the treatment, and the R indicates registration is possible. The data which is accepted by the vario, when it is preferred, that is the only data is useful for the treatment. When the data is not preferred by the software, which means there is some data gaps. The analyzed area is one, and the information like you can see the ring of rings, the Placido rings, and the pupil identified and the limbus margin identified. Limbus margin, iris structure, and the pupil margin, these all the very, very valid information for your registration. And then it is also looking at that, how much area has been analyzed. Because if it is a less area, there is a possibility of the extrapolation, so that it should not be leading to the wrong treatment. So this is the first step to identify the data, what we occurred is a valid or invalid. So then when we go to the topo guided, because as you all know that we also have a topo guided treatment which is based on the oculizer, we call it OcuLink. So we need to select here the topo guided treatment, topo G. Then all the input data from the vario, which will be exported here, we recommend at least 8, the max we can have it scan reports, or at least we should have more than 4. Because the more data, it indicates that reproducibility of the data. So we can assure that how accuracy in the data capturing, so that which can give a surety that we can go ahead with data for the further treatment. We can also look at that one more. Here is the work we recommend that you need to validate this data because we have all the data in front of us. We can change it to the raw sagittal display, which is a normal display what we all used to. That will help you idea how that curvature map is looking like that. If we can also look at the pupil sizes, Q values, and the K values and the respective axis. Topologizer also will give you the mean average deviation. The mean average deviation is the last one, which can give you, which is closest to the 0. So that means the from the mean value, the average deviation is deviation is not that much different, so that we can rely on this data. Then we can also exclude if there is a odd data or which is not closest to the other data, then we can exclude that. Now you can see that all the data are green indicated, so that it is valuable, so we can proceed with the treatments. So as usual, we will be entering the refractions, and the keratometry values are transferred automatically from the vario. And we need to give one more information is that corneal thickness all across. So that is one extra step we need to do compared to our wavefront optimized. Then once we go to the next step, we can also look at that, whether this cornea is having any irregularities. How do we do that? We remove the refraction. When we make the 0 refraction, we can see that any higher order aberration profile, it is contributing in this refraction, or it exists in this cornea. Though it is we know as is a primary eye, but still we can look at that. This will give you idea that what are we going to really address in terms of the customization here. So the final treatment comes. We will take you through with the help of the vario and the planning station. This is all the steps with the example of few cases. What exactly the treatment planning we need to do it in each step. That will be done by Dr. Pooja. Yeah, we have a couple of cases as an example. We can help you with that. Thank you very much.
Good morning for this informal session. Before we start, if we can have some questions I've had some questions about what Contoura is, but most of it is going to be discussed over the next one day. The challenge here is that I don't want you to get bored, so we have used a different kind of cases. I have a small presentation which I'm going to present. I'm sure this is something little different from what Abdul has seen, because from an Indian point of view, we all had Contoura when the machine came in. 200 hertz, or I think in the 200 hertz also had a topo-guided treatment. So it's just that we used to call it a topo-guided treatment, and we never used to really go and do it on a virgin eyes, assuming that touching an eye and making it something which we did not understand was not our way of treating. But eventually, I think we should thank Americans or Germans, I don't know whom. They all just said that, you can you can try doing it. Even though Jerry Tan from Singapore was always being a biggest proponent that every case has to be customized. But I know Jerry well. I think Dr. Partha knows him well. He's very, very passionate about what he does. Sometimes you don't know whether it's really him or it's passion speaking. So a lot of us did not really put too much of efforts into that, and we used to reserve it for an unhealthy eyes with great results. And then Contoura came in. Of course, there are a lot of, it's not the same thing as doing it on a unhealthy eyes. There are a lot of new things features which added, the algorithm which added, and then it came to Contoura. So both for existing, how many of you are existing Contoura users here? So there are a lot of us. So what are your challenges, sir? So when people ask you, or we go to a podium or a platform, when they say what Contoura is, do we have an answer how it is better? Abdul did a great presentation. I also used the same slides in the past. That's always been a challenge for me. I think we'll just go around, and then this presentation is just 10 minutes. I made this presentation for APACRS Lunch Symposium, so we can go through it. But I think if we understand that shortcomings, I think the whole conference we can address that, hopefully. Abdul, you can speak.
Rohit, what I would like to say, I would like to play the devil's advocate and say that the Wavefront Optimize is such a fantastic platform. Why should I go in for the Contoura? Why should I? So here I am for the next 2 hours. If someone convinces me that the Contoura is better, then I buy the Contoura. Otherwise, I don't.
I have a question for Abdul.
Check.
Those who have worked with Topolizer would know how difficult it is to acquire the scan in a deep set or a normal Indian eye.
That's the second point. Taken. Then.
You would want to watch a match in a full HD or CRT TV. That is the difference between Wavefront.
No, and the question is, the argument will come later. What we'll try now is we'll try to answer the concerns which we all have. Yes, sir. Can you just put my paper, please?
Many times we don't have the cyclotration registration, and if we leave it and we go further, whether the Contoura treatment will not going to harm. We are not registered. Many times that one eye is not registered for cyclotration and another is not.
Got it, sir. I think I'm just figuring out how many questions we are. It's all there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So what about dynamic cyclotron that's being taken into account? I mean, if that is possible or not?
It's difficult because even the iris recognition in this machine, Roland is here, he can answer it. I mean, let's go one by one. If you have a mic, you could also come here because he's from the company and he's an R&D person. If I understand right, the iris recognition is not a true iris recognition, is it right? It's just a reflection, what you're picking up. You don't have an iris recognition tool in the machine, am I right?
There's an iris recognition tool in the laser actually. So we are taking landmarks from the topolizer, and we are using it in the laser system in the EX500 for
The question I'm asking you is, do you have a real iris recognizer there, or you're just taking the reflections of the iris?
We are taking the reflection of the iris.
That is why it answers your question. It is not a true iris recognition thing, what a lot of us have used during the Hartmann-Shack era.
And in IQ 400 Hz, there is no iris recognition as such, and no cyclotorsion facility also is available.
Yeah, we'll come to that. What question he asked, Dr. Chaudhary asked was, if you are using an Contoura, and it is very difficult in Indian eyes, how many of you get the iris recognition when you're using Contoura 100% time? Anybody? 50%? So we are around 50% in Indian eyes.
It's not only with Indian eyes, we are also seeing this also with Caucasian eyes. Therefore, so we started actually a project to improve the iris recognition algorithm. So this is something what has already been addressed. So we have learned that when we used Contoura widely actually, then we listen to the customer complaints, and then we actually implement
if
this.
you are not getting it, it's not the machine's fault. 50% of us are not getting it all over the world. Am I right?
Yeah.
So that is something which is to be sorted out. I'm still asking this question. You were doing a Contoura.
So if you have not got the iris registration and you proceed further, so your properly map is not matching, and if you go topo guided treatment, whether you are not doing more harm,
so what the question
because it is you are not matching your cornea.
So if I can answer from a different machine perspective, like one of the disclaimers is that fortunate enough to have many machines where I can work on. There is a machine which tells me, not the same company, Schwinn, gives you in degrees each person's cyclorotation angle. I have not seen in the last 2 years, 1.5 years, where the cyclorotation of any patient was more than 0.5, 0.25 degrees. So I don't think that 0.25 degrees, assuming that most of us have the same cyclotorsion, I don't think that would compromise greatly on the quality of the vision. But I'm just giving an answer from a different point of view. But you're right, if you're looking at a small coma irregularities, a small cyclotorsion angle of more than around 1 to 2 degrees definitely is going to be harmful. Am I right?
Yes, so of course with cyclorotation, the Contoura study in the US has been done with the Allegretto, with the IQ. And on the IQ, we had no cyclorotation. So it means we also saw an improvement there. The cyclorotation actually adds an additional security feature to the Contoura vision procedure. Of course, we all would love to have 100% cyclorotation, but in some of the eyes, it's impossible to achieve that.
One of the papers I published to show you, where we compared the wavefront optimized versus the Contoura. That was one of the first paper which had a randomized control. It was published in JRS. I'll just put up this data. And most of those patients also did not have a pupil recognition. That was one of the issues we had, which we had to claim that if all patients did not get the iris or the pupil recognized. So the data, if you can put it up, was very similar. That means the patients had the same refractive error, both sides. The data was very similar, like Sir said about the wavefront optimized and the Contoura. But where at that point of time, some of it we have answers today. When I published this work, me and Rushad, when we found that, at that point of time, we did not have a clear picture of why the next slide. You can see that they're all very tight. Wavefront optimized in one eye versus the TCAT was very tight. That is, all this paper measured was the quantity of vision. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. But when it comes to the quality, there was a different feature, because they were same patients, one eye, same refractive error, same higher order aberrations, same coma, everything was same. So when you look at it, next slide. I'm anyway going to present it again, so next slide here. See, if you really look at this data, next slide, go back to that thing. Go back, yeah. No, I want that band. Look at the coma. Then, next slide. Hold on. This is where it was different. The question at that point of time was, we did not have an answer, and we also felt that, maybe maybe it's actually doing something, maybe it has a role. We did not even give an explanation in this paper, because this is just a descriptive paper. This was close to 2 years back. One of the first papers to compare both the eyes in JRS. Next slide. And look at the difference, the quality of vision. This is looking at basically an MTF kind of a picture, a point spread function. I mean, the patients are, you can see the MTF is nothing but the resolution capacity of your eye. If you use your Snellen visual acuity chart, virtually you'll not get any results out here. I don't think that's the reason. Even if I use V6, no offense to it, great machine, but it's a 20-year-old technology. Me and Himanshu compared data. Quality of vision is the only thing which marches away from both this technology. Quantity is exactly the same. I don't think we are making machines which makes you lose your vision online there. So when you look at this kind of a picture, and I think this is where and look at the MTF here, 27 and 53. That means both of them, anything more than 28, even you may have a MTF function of around 12, but still the patient may have a 6/6 vision. And you can have this, higher it is, makes your capacity of contrast, your quality better. That is what we understood at that point of time. But still we had no idea why it is doing it, and that is why I have a small presentation of why we are getting what we are seeing here. Any questions so far on this? Vinay? So can we go back to my first slide? Any question to Roland? He's a very he's a very intelligent guy. Very fortunate to have him here. It does when your cyclotorsion is more than 2 to 3 degrees. So that's what I said. When I had a technology Schwinn where I compared the cyclotorsion of every single patient I do the refractive surgery, because it tells me this amount of cyclotorsion is this much. And very, very rarely I see in our refractive patients having more than around 0.5 cyclotorsion, which still can be compensated. Even if you have that much of cyclotorsion, I don't think they are able to do it. Most of the machines can't do it because they're all static. And even if you have a dynamic cyclotorsions, it's very difficult. So one of the things at this point of time, most of the machines do have a limitations. But one feel-good factor is our cyclotorsion limits do not go more than 0.5 in at least the kind of patients we see. Except for the time you tilt their head, make all those measurements. If you are not doing much with their head tilt, the patient is comfortable, it's between 0.25 to 0.7 degrees is what the cyclotorsion is. But this probably may not have it, because people say that more than 2 to 3 degrees shift makes your quality of vision to deteriorate. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Standpoint in the cataract surgery also, where we do the toric IOLs, because most of the times we
see, toricity is very simple. When your toricity is off by around 10 degrees, you lose 33%, right? 33, 34% of it. But because that is very closer back, closer to the, your optics completely changes now.
Yeah, one question, please.
Yes.
Topo-guided treatment is expected to take more tissue from the cornea. Is it true with Contoura too?
We will have a demonstration of that. I'll tell you why it's taking more tissue and when it's taking more tissue and when it should not take more tissue. So I have a few slides. It's going to be a repetition for the next batch also, so sorry for that. But I'll try to see if I can change this the changer. These are my financial interests. This is how in the early 90s where, you treat hyperopia, myopia, you've done everything. And you had a formula and one size fits all. Your laser should just burn, that's it. Then the second generation came in where you're talking about cylinders, you're talking about astigmatisms, you're talking about things which are more complex. And trying to get a good zone, patient happy is what you used to consider as an achievement. Many companies came out with different profiles, beam profiles where you're actually trying to give more spots here, less on the center, just to see that you don't have a effect on the central flattening. You still used to get a perfect 20/20, but that's always going to be like this. Patients who are non-cribbers will not crib, but people who are cribbing will always say that, it's not as crisp as my contact lens. I don't see it as that much as I should be. So there was a big surge. I think it was started by Bausch & Lomb and V6, both of them, where they said that, we can give you supervision. We can convert everything to supervision. And they came out with a lot of optical jargon derived directly from a test book. And that's when we started understanding what Zernike was, what Fourier was. They were all words used in engineering science or pure mathematical science. They all came to our doorsteps and we had to learn all of them. And they said, this is what they said, you're going to achieve something beyond imagination, you're going to see 6/3 or beyond that. Again, this was just an enigma. I don't think anybody achieved this at all. The reason being, the vision is not just dependent on your cornea, your lens, how it's placed, and the most important thing is a colleague of ours started working on the retinal photoreceptors, the rods and cones. And these are cone cells actually of a same patient. Every single myope has a different orientation of cones, and we have an adaptive optics work, and these are all your cones, and the cone spacing, like your endothelial cells, are different in different individuals. That means your spacing of quads and cones, especially cones, determines how you're going to see and what's going to go to the brain. And that is determined by your macular threshold out there. So virtually, the power of a supervision became a myth. And we figured out that this just doesn't work. This is our own work. These images are our own, where we looked at different kinds of patients with quality of vision where the cornea is perfect, but still not achieving that perfect ones because of this. Then we started looking at what else. So that's where the whole era of customization came into the picture. And each person has a different set of all this. For example, that's where the customization, not as a customization, one blank at all, but for example, you take an image of Abdul here, that machine customizes for Abdul. And this is what we want to achieve, again. So you have all this thing, but two things when I believe that for a good refractive practice, it has to be two things. You can have rest of it all out here. This is a very old slide of mine. I've presented it many times, but I still like it because your robust diagnosis to connect to a thinking machine. If you connect both of them, then you have a wonderful marriage out there. And that is what we want to study. And for wave-like users, I don't want to go into this. We all know about it. Abdul has discussed about all this. And how each thing is calculated, how the images are taken up, and how you create a profile for that individual, for that cornea. So far we know everything. We know that ablation profiles are different, and this is what Dr. Dami asked. The big challenge is, I have shown this presentation, I don't want to go into this, I'll just skip this. The question was, why are we seeing difference in the quality just by using this profile? That was a big question. For example, this is a 6'6", this is 6'6", and this is mine. All are happy patients. You can see this, they're not unhappy. But look at this is the center of your cornea. I call it the Burj Khalifa thing. It's my favorite slide. It looks like a Burj Khalifa because there's absolutely no flattening in the center, the bang on. The laser is usually, that is one of the things it means to show that the profile makes it so perfect that it does not really create a crater, what used to be in the past. You need a profile. Unlike here, it is perfect, but there's still a small amount of step out there. And that, at your line of sight, is what you get the perfect quality of vision. You need that at your line of sight, because a small deviation makes your quality of vision change along with your pupil size, and all this makes a difference. So now coming to this, so this time we started looking at why are we getting that difference. So one of the most important thing is, this is for me, where Contoura really plays an important role is not in the sphere. You get me a 25-year-old machine, I plug in a -3, it will give me a 0 tomorrow morning because there's no great deal out there. But the challenge of a machine is here, the cylinder. And cylinders are we assume cylinder as something which is just a curvature changes and something which has to be fed into the machine and you get it. The answer to this is, what are the cylinders made up of? This, if you go back to our book of optics, cylinders are nothing but a geometrical shape. We call it a K1, K2 at whatever axis. And look at this. This is a second patient. This is a problem a lot of Contoura people use. We're going to discuss this a lot over the next one day. Why should we have a difference from what the patient is seeing to what the machine is saying? Should I believe the machine or should I believe the patient? This is what makes, if I assume right, the company does not have a policy. They say if it's more than 0.5 or 0.75, do not take, go and use this one. The answer is wrong. The TMR, what John Kanellopoulos says is, which he says that you treat the full of this, take the axis of this, and whatever difference between this and this is around, assume that is 0.75, use that to 0.7, half of 0.75, you're just trying to transpose. If half of 0.75 is around, say, 0.35, you reduce it from the sphere and you get it. That is what he talks about, the TMR. Even that is a very superficial way of understanding what the cylinder is. So what we did was, in this patient, his acceptance is this. We have this case, we're going to discuss this also today. Now what explains this 0.8 diopters of cylinder in this patient was a question mark. And this is something very difficult to answer with the conventional topographies or tools. But if you go and look at Galilei, in my optics lab, we are fortunate enough to have different topographers. I always say that there's no topographer which is perfect, but there's no topographer which is made imperfect. Every topographer, every tool is such a beautiful thing, but you have to understand where to use it and how to use it. It's always been told to us that Galilei is just a fancy tool, it doesn't do anything. But if you really look at something which is hidden, not many people know about it. It's one of the only machine which tells you how much is your cylinder what is the cylinder compromised of? The composition of a cylinder. That means it tells you, in this patient, the cylinder has got only astigmatism, no higher order aberration. In this case, the patient has half of it is astigmatism, other half is coma. And that's such a beautiful understanding into our cylinders, is because the astigmatism is derived by a component of your optical curvature and also the coma. So now, if you go use this, apply this into your practice, this is one of those small hidden software in Galilei which completely made us to understand everything about this whole components of cylinder in a different way. So, if you look at this, this is how we look at the cornea. Okay, the patient has 1.5 diopters at this axis, and this is it. But the patient also has a significant amount of coma. It's like dominance. The cylinder in the eye has got a dominance effect. That means whichever is dominating will tilt the axis towards that. That is exactly same thing happens maybe in your cataract when you put in when you check your K1, K2, but the patient does not accept that when you put a, because you are inducing cylinder through coma. Or you may have trefoil, which will again change it. So what happens here is there's a dance of everything. In your 0.5 diopters of cylinder, you can have all this also. And ultimately what happens is, what we consider this as our way of dealing with our refractive surgery is perfect. In this case, it's okay because the patient has got only astigmatism. The same patient what I showed you, that this is -2, his acceptance is also, the machine also says -1.94, the axis is the same, the cylinder is the same, because the whole of his -2 comes from only astigmatism. The Galilei actually gives you this, dissociates this. Now, I treat, like Sir said, Dr. Partha said, you treat wavefront optimized on him, or topo guided, you get the same results. But when you see this patient, which is around 35 to 40% of your refractive patient, once we started looking at this, you see he has now what you see here, 1.75 and a 2 diopters, and axis is different. Now what do? Traditionally, if I ask the Alcon people, they would say that you treat the cylinder or you treat wavefront optimized. To be very frank, nobody has an answer. Now let's look at what this patient has. What he has is this. So what you see is this patient has a predominant coma of he's not a keratoconic patient. He has coma of so much that coma is driving his entire cylinder. Now, why is the axis difference is because the coma is more predominant than his astigmatism. So the axis of 135 is mix of these, trefoil, deep and coma. So because that is your dominant axis. So what this patient actually has is a 2.5 because the topolizer correlates for all your higher order aberrations. It just does not give you a patient, it's not an autorefractometer, which gives you what the patient accepts and then you treat. Now, sir, if you treat the same patient with wavefront optimized, you will not know. You are treating it because you feel that there is a difference of cylinder, the machine is wrong, I'm going back to treating, you will end up with this. This is one of our patients where we did one in the beginning, when we did not understand this. But if we use this component and the post-op, you again end up with more coma. And you'll always come and say, doctor, it's not crisp, you know. We keep telling you to get better, afterward you're adapted and you'll get, but you always have this 0.5. The same patient had no cylinder because it corrects everything, but still the 0.5 is coming from the coma. Now, if we correct this patient the way I do it, now after this understanding, I go back and look at what the aberrations are. If the aberrations are high, I understand all of you may not have Galilei, but you can still look at your pentacam, you can look at higher order RMS. We have a protocol, we'll share it with you later for the day. If this is the coma, and I know the coma which is predominant, then look at this. So this is what a Contoura does. I've kept everything 0 out here. It is burning just with 0 around 8 to 10 microns just to cover up for that coma. And this is not a keratoconus patient. This is a healthy individual whose topography is perfect, who just walked into your clinic for a perfect surgery. And said, what did we do? We treat him with, the Contoura, keep the zero. That's a very important thing. When you keep the zero, it unmasks everything. The beauty part of it unmasks everything so that it tells you, even when you keep it zero, I'm treating so much of irregularity because I'm treating this, and this anyway is going to be taken care by any machine. And then you treat it, and this is what you get. I just hold on here for a minute, and then we can take some questions on this. So this understanding of cylinder is probably giving us an insight into why we have to look at everything in a different way. Because when you look at your component of your cylinder, we never look at that there is something else beyond that, and this applies for your cataract surgery also. It is, I personally believe, especially in these patients, it's not your anterior, it's not your posterior corneal astigmatism, because none of them had a posterior corneal astigmatism of more than 0.2 diopters. So it was more of an anterior surface change only. Any questions so far?
Am I audible? Yeah. So you said you do it in two steps. One, you remove the astigmatism and remove the coma and the...
No, so the machine does it at one step.
I see.
So what I just said is, if you want to know if your machine is right in giving you a cylinder which is different and an axis different, the best way to do is go back to your, anyway, I have a practical case, I'll show you. But I just wanted to know if who's right. It's like a litmus test. If you want to correct minus 2.5 diopters at 135 degrees, you need to know whether the machine is actually doing something or there is a wrong image which you have captured. If your image is captured properly and your machine is actually treating 10 microns of ablation only on a zero refraction, that means the Contoura is working for that case. Somebody asked me, where do you do Contoura? You have to do it, when you're doing Contoura, you have to do this procedure all the time to know if it's giving you what it's supposed to give or not. If the Contoura is giving nothing, everything is zero, like in this patient, whether I do Contoura or not doesn't make a difference for me, because there is absolutely nothing. Even I put a zero for this patient because there is not much of a higher order aberration to be corrected. And this is the way I think the Contoura works. Roland? Yes, sir.
Dr. Shah, in your charts, pie charts here, you're depicting astigmatism sometimes in blue and red and yellow. Is there some reason
It's
for
how
that,
the machine does. It's not me. It's a machine does.
So there is no difference this thing, is it?
So for example, I show you again.
See, because the other slide where you said the coma
This
factor...
This is a printout of the machine from Galilei. The reason I put this up, even though it's not directly linked to this, is there is no other machine which gives you in this format.
So the color depiction
has
really no...
The color has got no value.
Okay.
The colors are just a representative here. It's not that high means red means bad or nothing. It's just a representative. Eye trace, not really. But Pentacam, yes, or oculizer, yes. Topolizer, we are not able to get the same thing because I'm sure there are different types of technologies. But see, you can use whatever you want, but I'm just driving a concept. The concept what I'm driving here is, when you see an astigmatism, astigmatism is not just K1, K2 or your curvature. Astigmatism has, it's a family of so many people. I always teach to my residents that you assume that you have a family of people. Whoever is your dominant member in your family tilts the axis to that. If the dominant member is your astigmatism, it tilts to where the astigmatism is. If your dominant member of the family is coma, it will tilt to where the axis of coma is. The gentleman who had 135 degrees had a coma, which is so dominant that his way of life, and the question you ask is, why is the patient not tolerating 135? Is because it's in higher order aberrations. So he will only accept the lower order astigmatism curvature value, never the higher order. But if you put a contact lens and test him and use it, probably he might get better, but that's all I'm trying to say.
Sir, I may be wrong, but we've been told by the Alcon guys if there is a difference of more than 15 thing in, so like this was 135 and 175, you should
That's exactly
Contoura.
what I'm trying to say is, what Alcon has been telling, what PMR has been telling is just rubbing the surface. And we as clinicians are following exactly the same thing without questioning it. I started questioning and we found that they're wrong. Because we have to treat, but it's not like everybody treats whatever you get, but you have to go back to each of it. If I get this patient who has a degree change, it takes me half an hour to find out if I have to treat that axis or different axis, because you have to go into every single point. Over the probably next a day or so, you'll probably get it, but you can choose to do a wavefront optimize for this guy. Roland, I want you to answer this. He's given a very valid question here. Imagine this patient, according to your Alcon's algorithm, says that you should not treat, you should do a wavefront optimize. Aren't you creating a problem by doing a wavefront optimize in this patient who otherwise could have benefited from this? Yeah. So many things is being told to us, but we have to keep questioning. So the choice of whether you want to do it now or gradually is something, because even we started 2-3 months back when we started finding out there's a different area out there which we need to look at. So maybe slowly you can look at it, but for this particular patient, if I had done a wavefront optimize, I probably would have denied him. I have done the other eye wavefront optimize just to check. We would have denied him a perfect vision, which what he got with this kind of a thing. Am I right?
Yeah. So, sir, in this case, you would correct the whole cylinder or the cylinder that the patient is taking?
I will not correct the whole cylinder. The reason being, the machine is already doing some aberration correction here.
Okay.
I just go, maybe I'll correct, if it's 2.5, I just keep it around maybe a 2, because partly the machine, even with the zero correction, is trying to correct something.
Okay, but you would take the axis as to what he's.
I feel that you have to take the axis of what the topalizer shows, because if your patient has higher order aberrations, so what I'm trying to drive out here is, without knowing the higher order aberration, do not try to attempt all this. Go and look into the higher order aberration, or make everything 0 and do it. Okay. Because when you make 0, I'll have a case for you. The reason why I put this, even though it may be a little confusing, hopefully over the next one day it may be better, is Contoura works on a different way. We have understood it. It's like this. Imagine you're teaching a child a trigonometry at 3rd standard. We are all 3rd standard kids. But the way a 3rd standard kid understands trigonometry, the way a optics person understands trigonometry is different. So we have to, what I'm trying to say, we have to go above a certain level where our understanding of this thing has to be a little better than what is being driven at us. But in a nutshell, it is definitely doing something different for every patient. And it's definitely, I was one of the first people to publish, and even then my paper was filled with a lot of question marks. I personally wrote that paper saying that we don't know whether this quality would change. But now, when you see this change, it is definitely worth it. Yes, sir.
If you don't mind,
can we ask him a question? Sure. Let's everybody get a chance.
Excellent presentation. 2 questions. In one of your slides, the major refraction was 0.5 cylinder at a vertex distance of 12, and the TMR was at a vertex distance of 0. How are we going to equate them?
See, whatever we are seeing with the working distance, when you're using it a glass frame as a vertex, your comas don't get corrected. To be very perfect, To prove what I'm trying to say, we had to use a contact lens, which we have not done. But cylinders of any kind cannot be compensated, cylinder with aberrations cannot be compensated from a glass frame. So at this point of time, we just take the vertical distance where the patient is accepting.
Fine. I think you answered the second question also, but I'll ask. Treatment of entire corneal cylinder may sometimes unmask lenticular astigmatism.
My next slides is on that. So I thought I'll just stop here for questions and then go, and then we go to the live case.
Rohit, one question. You told that coma cannot be corrected by the spectacles, but a person who is using glasses and we do the refractive correction of only the astigmatism, then he should be having poor vision with the glasses itself because the coma was already there. Why do they realize that the vision is not as sharp?
So what happens is, even in the keratoconus patients, to answer this question, I'll go back to a keratoconus patient. You have a lot of keratoconic patients coming to your clinic and he has a high cylinder, you give him a glass, they're so happy, they never use the contact lenses. When we went back and checked all of them on this protocol, the coma for some reason or trefoil for some reason was the non-dominant one. So when you do a astigmatic correction, you are correcting the astigmatism, but your good way of doing a refractive surgery with whatever form is not inducing him any unwanted aberrations. So he's perfectly all right with this. So the problem comes is here when your dominance becomes this. So to sum up on this part of it, what is important for us to know is, which we did not know till recently, is there is tremendous amount of customization happening for every single patient at every single level. And just saying that 15 degrees off, don't treat it, do a TMR for everybody is like teaching a kindergarten kid how to do a mathematics.
The same case, take this case again. The difference between our clinical refraction and this is the angle is different by 40 degrees.
Yes.
So normally I go back and check again, recheck the patient whether my clinical angle is wrong. So in that case, if I find that the angle which the machine is showing, which is 175, 135, is correct, then I go back and get the angle as mentioned by the machine. But if the patient is not happy with this cylinder and the angle, what should we do?
See,
normally I am not doing it.
See, what really happens is, if I go to the next few slides, one of the things what really happens here is, there is such a beautiful synchrony between the cornea and the lenses. We have some beautiful videos today which is going to be played. Neeraj has made something for you all, where whatever you do on the lens, the lens kind of dances to the tunes, okay, in a healthy format. If the way I do it in this kind of a scenario is when the person is not matching, which cylinder do I use? So that's the reason I just put that zero refraction concept. If I put that zero, and if I see that the machine is ablating more to correct the cornea, that means that I would go by the topolizer, not the wavefront because I know that the patients would benefit better. Because if you are treating just a wavefront optimized, you are not changing that cylinder coma at all. The patient may just have a 0.5 cylinder remaining at the end of it. Sorry. This is a patient of ours with just a 0.5 cylinder. And he is always complaining that he's not seeing crisper. Everybody has said that you are a cribber. You are a difficult human being because you should be happy because I've given you, look at his 0.5 cylinder, where it's coming from. It's 0.5, the entire is coma. And the astigmatism is just a small bit. And this person's vision is, I don't know whether we have it. And this person, sorry. This person, who's 0.5 on the other side, is completely coming from astigmatism. And this astigmatism, that 0.5 is got a mix of, it's a cocktail mix of multiple things which makes you happy or unhappy.
And if you go and enhance that 0.5, again you'll be unhappy.
You will be unhappy. So if you have to do is, if you have to enhance that 0.5, let's assume that you are a old surgeon, you want to take that call of 0.5, you again go back to the zero mode and you know how it is ablating, and then you can enhance it. You know, we both have handled one patient something similar. It's a second order, third order, another thing, but the green is where it's most important. I mean, this is the concept which I wanted to drive in this format because we are going to discuss a lot of cases, something connected to this. Any more questions on this?
See, we have been, ever since we started refractive surgery practice, it's always, what Dr. Abhikar also told already. The eye has got capacity to, compensate the one aberration, in a different way, like in a lens or in the retinal curvatures.
Yeah.
So that was the idea that topography didn't be as popular as wavefront in the beginning. What is that we are rethinking, that we are bringing back Contoura vision and topographic vision back, so that, what is that rethinking?
I feel it's a quality of vision. See, your quality of vision. See, ultimately, you have to base your refractive surgery on. See, it's like this. We all know that one form of surgery is doing great, and we move to the next level. We know that incision of this much was doing great, but we went into micro incision. We know that everything may not change you in a gross format. They may not make you grossly different. I'm sure that even if you use a V6 laser, the gross format may be different. But what it changes you is that finer point which makes it completely different. But you feel that you're customizing it for a person, for his needs. There are various reasons.
Only one level?
Pardon?
Customization at only one level? Why don't you take the total eye as a
For that you need to, for that I think Roland can answer. They may come out with the ray tracing optics. Ray tracing optics is the only one which can compensate as a model for the whole eye. At this point of time, we are technically limited by too many choices. But to go into little more and confuse you more so that we can discuss more, we started this work as one of our PhD work is, we call it the lens biophysics model. Because what I'm talking today, this next 10-15 minutes, not just Contoura. Contoura you can understand anyway, it's just about the background of optics. See, we use all these tools, the Galilei, and what is very interesting is a new tool from Osiris, which Dr. Prashant can answer a lot of the questions. Osiris is the only aberrometer which gives you aberration of real-time accommodation. It tells you real-time, you can give stimulus and feel how you're accommodating each two different stimuli, whatever is happening. So for example, this is again to your question. This is your astigmatism, and this is how the lens would tilt to cover up for that astigmatism. We have all studied in our textbook that there's a one shift of lens, forward, backward, based on the zonules, and we assume that everybody gets the same forward, backward shift. Unfortunately, it's not. The amount of lens compensation, that is how the big telescopes of the world were built. They called it the adaptive optic telescopes. The adaptive optic telescopes was built from a model of eye, but somebody was smart enough that they did not make the optics of those lenses move only in one direction. They moved to how the light was coming from the stars. That's why it's called adaptive. So lens accommodation is a dynamic adaptive process. For example, if you have this astigmatism, it would move in a certain direction, and this is from a patient. The red indicates how the lens has moved forward to that particular thing. And this is in real motion. You can see that now it is not fully accommodated. You can see that some part of it is still yellow here and some part of it. So it would tilt more in the area of more astigmatism or more light. And this is consistent to different individuals. And for example, this is a classic example of a coma and how the lens is, and look at this, this is not a topography, this is a lens. You can see how you're creating a pellucid-like picture on the lens because the lens is tilted in such a way that it only compensates for this. And I'll show you the video out here. This is the high trace. High trace is good, but doesn't give you the real time. It's a static one. You can see this, and you can see at some point of time, you can see this happening. This is such a beautiful image, and this just tells you. I'll give you that video, sir. This just tells you how little we have understood the optics of the eye. And imagine this patient absolutely has this part not moving at all. The lens is not moved. And you'll be wondering if it's repeatable and how do you do it? If somebody is interested, I can test all your accommodation and in the hospital, there's a way to do it. And this is such a beautiful tool which answers your question, sir. Why some part just gets negated? Because if your lens, that's why if you're doing it somebody who's a 38-year-old and you induce more thing, he's always going to be a cribber because this is already stopped. Not stopped, it's not as fragile. An 18-year-old person would probably balance it better. And that is probably the answer for this. So any questions? So let's go for a live demo. Guys, which page? Roland, anything to add? You have to teach us differently now.
Not from my side now.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to congratulate your talk because we are using Contoura now for more or less 3 years, and you really got to the point where we were already discussing with the R&D people. Where is the Contoura really a powerful tool? So the first thing you have to bear in mind, and you really stressed it, is this is a customized treatment. Customization. So customization will be divided in 3 steps, as Dr. Shetty really well demonstrated. First, you have to really take care of the diagnostic. So your technician or yourself, you really have to check if the diagnostic imaging taken from the patient is reliable. This is the first key issue in Contoura. It's not difficult, but it's very critical because if the machine is giving you a wrong map, all of those images of the planning will be virtually non-existent. So you will be planning something that it's not real. So first thing, keep in mind that the technician or the staff who is taking the image has to be very well trained, and you have to bear in mind those images shown where you compare it and see if everything matches. This is the first key step. Second step is the planning in the platform or in your office. And here we should plan 2 things or adjust 2 things. Sphere is not a problem, as you will see here. Normally, if you want it to be precisely very, very go into the biggest detail, I would say to you that the biggest sphere that I have changed is like 0.1 or 0.2 diopters. It's insignificant for the final refractive outcome. And why? Because the high order aberration map normally is not so high. These are normalized with 20/20 vision, so the sphere will not be almost changed. Although in the opposite way, the cylinder is our battle now with the treatment, and is where everyone is really discussing. And you have 2 scenarios. First scenario, the first patient, everything matches, everything is okay. In that particular patient, any kind of treatment will do it and will get a good result.
And I just put this on so we can discuss this as you speak. So what you're going to speak is going to be here. So we both can speak together.
Okay, good.
Can we put it on? Because we need to break for lunch by 12. Yes, please. Abdul, if you can help them out. So this is the patient, and keep moving. You can take this off. Yeah. Now, you have go to the screenshots. Let's assume that these are all perfectly matched scans. They're healthy. So, if you look at this patient out here, you have on this, sorry, you have a 1.25, okay, and you have a 1.64, what the machine says. Now what would you do? Forget about this part. Let's assume that this is not there.
This would be a perfect patient for a doctor to start Contoura, I think, because you have very small difference between the magnitude of seal and the axis of the seal.
Okay.
This would be a perfect patient for you to engage with the treatment and to gain confidence with the treatment. And why? Because here, as you will see, the result will be, I presume, very good, and the refractive outcome will be perfect, and you will get confidence from the treatment.
So what I do is just one step more than him is, I just go back to 0 up there.
Yeah, the 0 map is...
So I do the 0. So what do we see here? We see that there is some amount of coma which is correcting, some amount of irregularity. It's not very high, around -7 diopters, sorry, 7 microns. But remember one thing, 7 microns is a big thing to correct the aberrations on a corneal plane. So I know that the machine is correcting this much of irregularity. If I had not, if this was not a Contoura 1 or any wavefront, it would have just shown as, you can, same patient, can we go to the same patient on the wavefront optimize? You will know that you'll miss the entire thing. Okay, let's just finish this off and then go up. We'll wait for a minute. So what I do is, because I know that there is more aberrations which is going to be corrected, in this patient would be a good case for what people call a topo guided, compensation or TMR. I don't remember the full word. So I would probably go for close to 1.5 diopters of correction. What would you do?
Probably the same.
The reason I'm going 1.5 diopters, not 1.6, is because it's already correcting. Yeah, look at this. This is a wavefront optimized. You have no idea what is going to correct, what it is doing. It is just treating a one-band treatment on your cornea, and it just treats assuming that there is nothing which is imperfect in that cornea. It is just a simple sphere and a cylinder. So, if you put the Galilei on this side, please, just to show what the, not coming. Yeah, go back to the next one. This is the one? This is a different one, don't worry.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
Can you please put everything in 0 and the TCAD file again, please?
This is a wavefront optimized, I think. Yeah, this is TCAD, yeah.
Okay. One of the first things that doctors are afraid of is the sphere. Imagine this patient did not have seal. Imagine it's a half seal in refractive, in subjective refraction. One of the things doctors ask when they first are treating with Contoura is, how is this map going to change my sphere? This is one of the first fears that comes into your mind. And as Dr. Shetty mentioned, you see that the maximum ablation is almost 8 microns, but I would say that the mean peripheral ablation will be around like 6 microns. It looks like a hyperopic profile if you think it's taking more tissue from the periphery. And even in the center, it's taking some tissue, 3 microns. The basics of refractive surgery in the cornea is taking more tissue in one side than in the other, and that's what makes the curvature change. So if you think this differential between the center and the periphery will be around 3 or 4 microns. If you think that one diopter is more or less treated with 15 microns, you will see that this would have a artificial impact of around 0.2 diopters. And this is the normal profile you get from the Contoura. You have to bear in mind, these are normal eyes with good vision, and when the refractive seal is not different from the measured seal, the high order aberration map will give you a very small profile in terms of ablation, and this will not have impact on the sphere. Since 2017, we are not almost adjusting the sphere anymore. Many doctors are not adjusting sphere, they are just plugging the sphere the patient has. If you think only of the sphere, when you enter TMR, it's completely different story because you have to adjust the spherical component, the spherical equivalent.
Like I said, you go by experience. After some time, when you're doing it, you'll realize what to do. What I do is, now there is a 1 and a 1.6, if you put the cursor around there, yeah, 1.6 on the cylinder please. Yeah, minus 1.6 is what we have. But keeping everything as 0, the machine itself is burning around 7 microns of it. It's correcting the cylinder even without you asking it to do, by putting a power to it. So we don't need to actually go and correct minus 1.6. You can just keep around 1.5. How do you choose 1.5? I usually go 10 to 15% less of, because based on the ablation. Then if you correct it, this is how it's corrected. Then the difference between, say, what the patient, this is what Canelopoulos says, this part. You have a minus 1.5, you are actually treating, patient accepts minus 1.25, you're treating close to 1.6, but what he says is if you don't undercorrect the cylinder, you may get an overcorrection. So what he says is that 0.5, what you're changed from a subjective to what you're actually put, he says that half of it, you reduce it from the sphere. That is a very small number to reduce, but if you want to reduce, then I think you have to just keep it as a 5.10, 5.5. Like what he said is right, you don't even need to do it, but if you want to do it, this is what I would correct, and I would go, based on this profile, I would go by the axis of the cylinder, axis of the topolizer, if my topolizer is done right, so I would keep it as 3 degrees. And this is what would be the final correction, and the zone is 6 or 6.5 depending on the pupil.
This is the kind of, the other second case you shown before, the more extreme case, is the most difficult to plan, but it's the patient will really benefit from the treatment. And it's it's a kind of patient where before we really didn't have any weapon to use. We would apply the wavefront optimized, and maybe the result will be good, but it will not be excellent. So the key here is to individualize each case. So you really have to study each case in order to see if Contoura is something that you should apply, or maybe you should apply another profile. It's really a question of customization. And the possibility to customize the treatment is also a fantastic tool, because 10, 15 years ago we didn't have that possibility.
We have one more case and then we break for lunch. This is a decent topography, a healthy eye, topography looks normal. Again, this is the same patients. Which eye is this? The right eye. Which is the right eye on this side? No? You can see it's a mix of multiple things out here. And now this is a challenge which I think everybody faces. You have, and this is not the challenge only in Contoura. I use Xioptics, I use Schwinn, I use V6. Every single place, if you have to do anything customized, the challenge comes to you is the cylinder. Because everything else is so simple in all of them. You choose what the machine says or you do your own is where it is. But once you start doing it, I think it gets into your DNA. And most of the time when I go, my residents have already filled in and we just go and laser it. Now this is a problem. Look at this. We have a -3.5 and the patient acceptance is -2.47. And what do we really do with this now? You have close to 1 diopter of cylinder. This is a big challenge. By tradition, you can choose to ignore it and do your regular wavefront optimize. Don't worry about it. But the question is, when you have such a big wheel chart out here, with mix of coma, defocus, aberrations all out here, first thing is you do the 0, and you can see that it's still burning around 8 to 9 microns there. The challenge is nobody really has a right answer for this. I mean, this is not just Contoura, it's everything. So in this case, what I've been doing, and I've been following my cases, I don't have a long series to show, especially these kind of things. Patients are happy whether you treat the cylinder on top or you treat this, because for initially the lens helps them to compensate. But in the 3rd month, you start seeing the problem. That's when they come to you saying that I get headaches, my eye pains at the end of the day, and all this stuff comes, because then the lens is tired of compensating. So what I do in this case is, if I know this part well, which you can get it from the pentacam, you know that there is a lot more aberrations out there, then I would more or less do what a TMR would do, where you go and correct close to what the topography aberration pattern is, and then keep the axis as the same, and then reduce that part from the sphere. For example, what I would do, then I will ask what you would want to do. First, what I would do in this case is I would correct a -2, because some amount of ablation is going to be taken care by this.
Yeah. Here you can clearly see the, put 0 again. Here you can really predict the direction of the coma, clearly more to the 10 degree than to the 25 degree. There is also a very nice tool, the Fourier map on the topolizer or oculizer can give you the exact
Can you put that? Can you put the topolizer map in this? You have to connect that.
No? Well, but
we can connect that later.
Okay. But it's also for those who don't have really access to the Galilei, the topolizer and the oculizer can give you the exact
Can you
value.
connect it, please?
Can give you the exact value in terms of microns or diopters and the direction of the coma, and you can really match some of the coma map to the high order aberration map. So here I would probably go beyond in the middle of 2, so 1.5, 2.5. I'll probably plug in 2, and I will probably go more or less in between. Maybe I'm really learning how to do it. I would put -2 there and -15 degrees, and then I would adjust in the sphere. I would normally do more or less what would you.
So what he's trying to say is that he would correct. Let's say that we correct. This is the same patients. Go to the Fourier, show in which it's a very beautiful map in a topolizer, the Fourier analysis. So we'll connect it later. So what we do is make everything 0. Okay. So what I would do is I would go close to the topolizer cylinder, which is, say, let's assume -2. And I go by the axis of the topolizer, because I trust the topolizer axis, because it is what is giving you the complete picture. And because the patient acceptance was -1.5, and what the patient we are treating is -2, there is a difference of 0.5, which I have to compensate it on the cylinder. So that if I take the spherical equivalent of that, it will be around 0.25.
Yeah.
So I reduce the 0.25 from -3.25, which becomes -3.5. So, and I use a axis, optical zone of 6 or 6.5, and this is what I would ablate with. That is how we would do. I mean, I have not put a very simple cases that I don't think this group needs to know about that. I put something which is challenging to you on a day-to-day basis. Any questions on this?
That measured sphere is showing minus 0.61 now. It was
Measured
there.
because it doesn't give an axial length. This is not an autoref. It doesn't give an axial length, so we don't need to bother about it.
But why do you get, it should ideally be 0.
I think it must be basing it from the curvature of the cornea. I don't know where optically, but that is not what we want, because if you have a biometry in it, then probably it will give you an axial length and it will probably get you that value. This is not an autorefractometer.
Ignore that measured
You need to
sphere
ignore
from
that completely.
Where does it come from?
Any other questions? No, it's not 11, it's 10 degree. So what we've been getting is, the results what we've been getting with the data is exactly based on this format. I think both more or less not much of a disagreement on that point, but I'm sure there will be many other cases where we'll probably not agree on.
Yeah, the question for the future is really how we can optimize this planning, okay? Because this is, we are learning with it. So the question some of you may ask, yes, but can it be more automatic, more dynamic, more fast, more intuitive? That's the next step. But bear in mind, this is the ultimate customization treatment that you have, so you cannot customize further than this. And this is a very wonderful tool that we have really to learn with it, to take profit of it in our patients. And this is the key message.
But if I remember right from discussion, that I don't know how much I can reveal, but Alcon is looking at a complete ray tracing based topalizer kind of a system where it has everything. It will get you an autoref, it may get you a lens, everything, so that you don't need to worry too much about too many things. Till it comes, we have to find a solution.
Right. Before you had the Contoura, you were doing wavefront optimized for all these years. Now, the patients that were not satisfied with the wavefront optimized and they came back with maybe a 0.5, but had a large coma or a trefoil. So, did you do topo guided for that?
We have. That's what I said. Me and Vinay had a common patient who had the same issue, and we have done for him, and I've done for a couple of them. I've done for one or two. We have one or two cases today. One done in Bangladesh or somewhere had the same issue, and we've been doing that kind of a picture. I mean, it is. If you really look into that patient, it is there. I mean, you are one of the first pioneers of Zyoptics era. Even then, this problem used to creep up, the difference between what do we do. Unfortunately, we did not have too many answers for it, but these new optical machines are giving us small insights into how you actually approach them differently.
In a previous
question, if I just can continue once more. So now that you have the Galilei and it maps out so well and shows so vividly the amount of coma. Now, after the Contoura, what is the outcome of the coma?
I showed you one of it, right? That with the astigmatism becomes predominant.
The astigmatism?
Yes. The astigmatism predominant, not your other unwanted higher order aberrations.
HO is gone.
Yes.
That's what you published in your paper.
Yes, yes.
One of the things that gave impact to the paper was you were lowering the low order aberrations, even though you were not achieving like 2012 or something, because you were not addressing this part. Although you were reducing the coma and the trefoil.
So, if I want to answer it a little more optically about what makes it different, I'm still working on it. The difference is the end of the day strain. See, even if you have a small bit of an aberrations, when I start looking at the lens biophysics model, the lens is so much differently aggressive here that patients have that bit of strain. It's not only LASIK patients, the normal healthy 6/6 patients. So when you make the patient more comfortable, the lens tilting in different direction is not a healthy one. the lens has to move in a proper one only because when you skewed it, it actually we have been doing a lot of patients on migraine. The migraine with stimulus, migraine lens movement is completely different. It tilts, it balances it, it's not like a complete green picture what we see. So that means we are, at the end of the day, you should, even that small things, if it can make you comfortable, I think it's still worth it.
Rohit, in previous flap LASIK cases, if we plan an enhancement sort of a procedure, can the same thing be used as surface operation?
But we may have to do a little tweak, and we have a case in the afternoon, complex case, two of them. One, something which you said, 6'6" patient, 0.5 cylinder, unhappy, comes from Bangladesh, and recently, and I'll explain how we did that for her.
Thank you.
Anything else? Unfortunately, some of this presentation you may have to listen again for the second batch. I can't help it, but the cases will be different.
Rohit, if you don't have these kind of fibrometers, could you please tell us how on the with a Vario, how can we work on these kind of cases?
You can. Can you go to the Zernike one? But it is not very perfect yet. You can pick up from your Pentacam, or you can pick up from any abrometer you use. Like sir asked about eye trace, even eye trace you can do. What I do is any higher order aberrations of more than 0.7 is something which I consider it as significant for doing TCAT. So that you can pick it up from Pentacam, Oculizer, Topolizer, anywhere. This is not the great one which we have not been able to really correlate, but it at least tells you the magnitude of all this different comas. But I would prefer using one of your abrometers, because finally abrometers, if you have one, will compensate your lens also and tells you the form, what is the compensation from the cornea to and each component of it.